Hello, welcome to the CCR 2017 COP Report methodology presentation. In today's presentation, I will start with the 15 minutes demonstration of the messages and point I want to include in the report. During my presentation, no questions is allowed simply for maintaining the logic flow. And after it, we are open for 40 minutes open discussion and clarification. If decisions are not made during the discussion, the 5 minutes in the end will be reserved for voting ideas must include in the report, good to include in the report, and not to include in the report. So without further ado, let's start. Previously, due to the limitation of the database, we always have to phrase messages according to what data we can access and what I personally can do with Excel. That is not a really good tool. This is the first time with the functioning and well-programmed database we can range data according to what message we want to send. So let's start with the messages. In this report, I would like to demonstrate 5 points supported by calculated and self-consistent statistic analysis. They are: local and regional governments are taking ambitious and responsible and people-benefiting commitments. I want to demonstrate why they're ambitious, why they're responsible, and why they're people-benefiting. Second, they're taking coherent and strategic actions to meet these actions. I want to demonstrate why we say they are coherent and why they are strategic. And the third and fourth and fifth are to explore what factors encourage local action, what factor raises local ambition, and what factor help us to achieve effective vertical integration. And by the end of the report, we would like to send a letter, an invitation, a letter of suggestion to the world to help us encourage local action, raise local ambition, and conduct vertical integration. Let's start with the first point. The local and regional government's commitment are ambitious and responsible or responsive. I will explain the difference. To illustrate this, I would like to put all the commitment into one graph. On the X-ray, you can find the year, and on the Y-axis, you can find the per capita emission of correlating year. And using these two factors, I would like to put all the reporting entity, like number 1, number 2, and all the country index that the country include at least one CCR reporting entities, and a reference commitment that it's what is required by the 2-degree goal. If by putting all of them into the graph, we will have more than 600 lines. Of course, we will not demonstrate all of them, but only a few meaningful highlighted lines. And those highlighted lines, database will help us to identify them, will include messages as such. X number of local and regional government has committed to address mitigation and or adaptation to address climate change. X number of local and regional governments' commitment has exceeded the requirements of 2-degree goals. That is demonstrating why they are responsive or responsible. Communication team, please help me to define the word. Responsive means that they responds to the challenge. Responsible means that they are taking the responsibility. So you decide which one is more powerful. And then X number of local and regional governments has exceeded their national ambition. That are all the blue lines that under the black line, and all the blue lines under the orange line are local and regional commitment that has exceeded the requirement of 2-degree goals. And finally, if following the average ambition level of CCR reporting entity, X ton of CO2 equivalent will be reduced by 2020 or 2050, political decision to be made. And what does that mean? That equal to a significant country's emission, or that contributes to certain percentage of the 2-degree goal. Next point. Not only are local and regional governments' commitment ambitious, they are also responsive to their local problem. They are designed considering citizens' benefit. I will demonstrate this point by the following argumentation. There are X number of commitment addresses their emission sector. That answers the responsible part because those emissions are what the city emitted. Therefore, they take the responsibility by committing action to their major emitting sector. And secondly, X percentage of the commitment are focusing on improving the happy and healthy community, which is responsive to their citizens' requirement. Those requirements include an adaptation of risk and vulnerability identified is the safety living needs of their citizen, improve energy accessibility by deployment of renewable energy sources, and improve energy affordability by improving energy efficiency. And all of the point demonstrating why local and regional commitments are responsible and people benefiting. I would like to demonstrate all those points with a ring graph like that and support it with Mayer's quote. And I would also like to deep dive into each of these types and benefit. I will explain the deep dive city template at the end of this presentation. Next point. Local and regional government are taking coherent and strategic actions to meet their commitment. Not only did local and regional government dare to set ambitious promise, they are also putting action into place. Here is how I'm going to demonstrate the coherence and the strategic. I'm going to put all the reporting entity into a graph like that. On the X-ray is the ambitious level of their GHG mitigation target. On the X-ray is the number of action. Then we can categorize the reporting entity into 4 groups. Group 1, ambitious and active cities. Group 2, active cities with low ambition. Group 3, ambitious city with limited number of action. Group 4, explorer cities with limited ambition and number of action. By zooming into each group and comparing the national ambitious level, interesting result can be discovered. First of all, we can prove that local and regional governments' targets are coherent with strategic action by identify the leader in both action and commitment. Simply tell them which city they are, listing the names and deep dive into them. And then listing the number of local and regional government that taking action to address their major emission sector and identified risk and vulnerability. And finally, number of action plan that local and regional government set to address the major emission sector and risk and vulnerability identified. Means cities are not doing it in a random pace, but they are doing it strategically into action plans. When we dive into entities in group number 1 and group number 3 and comparing, we will find out what factor encourage local action. With factors taken into consideration include participation of initiative. Group 1 city usually participate in initiative that group 3 city usually don't. And the local budget, does that mean group 1 city government has a richer budget and the number of local government staff? The latest year of reporting, does that mean the group 1 city simply report more often? Group 3 city has a higher amount of action, but they did not report. The action plan status, the geographic condition, population, community GDP, and finally, national commitment level. Does a city in a high national ambition country tend to have more action? And then by comparing entities in group 1 and 2, we try to find out what help local entity raise ambition. The result of this two comparison will help us phrase a suggestion letter to the world, requiring them to support local and subnational entity to take more action and to raise ambition. In the end, I would like to explore how to conduct effective vertical integration by identifying vertically connected entities in this same graph, and to find out, are leader regional entities lead to leader local entities? If North Rhine-Westphalen is here, does that mean Bonn, Cologne, Düsseldorf are here or somewhere else? Can higher level of local regional action be translated and implemented at local level? Which means if North Rhine-Westphalen has a lot of action, the Köln, Düsseldorf, and Bonn should have a lot of action, and they should have correlating names, sector, and co-benefit because they are designed together. The lower level is simply implementation of a higher level. How does higher entities support lower entities' action? Is that through administrative order, by legislation, regulation, or with financial assistance? Or how does lower level of entity respond to the higher level entity once they did not report this descriptive point in the profile page? Unfortunately, I have to say the above mentioned questions might not be answered due to the lack of report from vertically connected entities. But we should announce the identified vertically connected groups, our questions, and our methodologies. We will use this report as an invitation letter to all entities interested to vertical integration. We will actively work with them in 2018 and looking forward to results in the next COP report. And finally, I promised there are few deep dive city to be selected, demonstrating our abstract point. For each deep dive city, we will include a little summary, their action, baseline emission, the action spread if they are coherent, and highlight action with a mayor's quote. I would like to highlight it is the first time we can demonstrate a city's action if it is coherent to the target and to the emission, and give a comparative indicator to the basic information. And to achieve this report is not easy. I need the management's bless and support in the following aspect. First of all, we need to have a functioning database that supports data extraction according to criteria. That means a certain amount of budget need to be spared on expert like Rian, because previously our database cannot do proper extraction, let alone analyze. And the methodology need to be embedded into the database by September, and we need to have 3 times testing. And we need to clean previous reported data by recategorize them, renaming them, identifying duplication, and update. We need support from external entities such as collaborating students. And we need to call for missing information from cities, and we needed to support it by ROs, maybe the membership teams. And we need assistance from adaptation and mobility team in assessing relevant data, or you can think of any city have good report and simply contact them to improve their report. We need to clean the national NDC simply by translate their report into our structure so that we can compare them. We need maybe external support from the IHS student. The text written need to be done by COM team directly in September as a test and October as final. And the management team need to review the methodology in July, which is now, and review the draft design, visual design, and text in September, and have the final sign-off in October.